Oh, your rain. Let it fall on me.
Let it fall on me.
Your presence. Oh,
let it rain.
Oh, let it rain. Oh, let it rain.
Your rain.
Oh,
Let it fall on me.
Open the in abundance and cause your rain to fall on me. Baba, open the floodgates in abundance and cause your rain to fall on me. Send your refreshing rain, let it pour on, overflowing us. Ooh, yeah. Baba, we cry to you, Lord. Hear our cry, God. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. Oh, let it rain, oh, Baba, everybody say, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh. Send your rain, refresh us.
Oh my God, I love it.
Climax.
Hi, I'm Blessing.
And I'm Favor, and we listen to Conversation with GiGi.
What's up, London? This is Elizabeth, and I listen to Conversation with GiGi every Monday and Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. on Climax Radio.
Join Conversation with GiGi every Monday and Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. UK time, live on Climax Radio.
Baba, weary your presence, let it rain. Oh, your rain, let it fall on me. Weary your presence, let it rain. Oh, your rain, let it fall on me. We're in your presence, let it rain. Oh, your rain, let it fall on me. We're in your presence, let it rain.
Brand new to Climax Radio.
It's Conversation with GiGi.
Open the floodgates in abundance and cause your rain to fall on me. Baba, open the floodgates in abundance and cause your rain to follow me. Oh, 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 oh. Ooh, hey, hey, hey. Somebody help me sing it. Yeah, yeah.
Baba, we're in your presence. Let it rain.
Oh, your
Oh,
rain.
your rain.
Let it fall on
Let
me.
it fall on me.
Feel it in your presence. Oh,
Let it rain.
oh, let it rain.
Climax.
Oh, let it
Oh,
rain.
your rain.
Live.
Oh,
Let it fall on me.
open the floodgates in abundance and cause your rain to fall on me. Baba, open the floodgates in abundance and cause your rain to fall on me. Baba, oh, Baba, send the refreshing rain and a overflow.
Hi, I'm Blessings and I'm Favor.
And we listen to Conversation with GiGi.
Baba, Baba, we cry in love, hear a cry, let it rain, 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 oh, let it rain, oh, Baba, oh, Baba, oh, Baba, oh. Everybody say, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Send your rain, refresh us, overflow. Oh, yes, Lord. Oh, yes, Lord. Oh, yes, Lord. Oh,
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Conversation with GiGi. Welcome, welcome. You are now tuned in to Climax Radio Conversation with GiGi. As you always know, I like to always give a summary of what we spoke about the day before on Monday. The last few weeks, we've been talking about why youngsters are joining gangs and what are the issues facing them. We talked about the reasons why they join.
Climax Radio.
We've also talked some of the symptoms to look out for if you have a son or a daughter, in particular our lovely young youth, our lovely young boys. There are young boys joining gangs or getting in trouble as young as 9. A 12-year-old the other day knifed a 9-year-old boy. Why? Because he felt unloved in a home and he wanted to be put in jail. So as a result, he knifed and killed his classmate in the school ground. Some of the areas that we talked about was that why are people or youngsters joining such groups of people that would not be productive in their lives? Some of the issues that we talked about were, is it peer pressure? Is it making money? Are they taking drugs that's making them behave the way they do? Is it lack of parenting in the home? Is it perhaps they're not doing so well in the school and as a result of that, their attention to studying has become a problem. So they've decided to join groups of people that they feel would be more welcoming in their group. Let's discuss it. Stay tuned. We're just going to go for a few breaks.
Good morning, God, we see another day. Praise the Lord, we want to give you thanks and praise. God bless our homeland, God our motherland. Peaceful and together, surely we gonna build Ghana strong.
Yeah, Jay, Sawama, bro. Yeah, Jay, Mama, yeah. Aha, at for Christian Love na motemin kain. Mutie radio. Ewo www.climaxradio.com.
Yeah, direct. What we send you so I know to scatter the supply for aduane no e ofie bibia ya equal say akrante tea leaf corn beef aha fufu cry seneba emo bibia utimi ne Ghana na chaka wa brochi Wayosi Music and Services so person would normal be call Ghana Wayosi Music and Services it 48-hour door-to-door courier service problem bia ni say ya pakan affordable ja me money transfer who sem nyina me ne Wayosi ya de nam say me sikani free Ghana about UK same day same me free UK akọ Ghana same day Ghana obetumi agene pounds dollars euro and cedis ja we do secured okay almost one leading agents Emma Astros Eco Ghana and Ghana International Airlines and the ticket the 7 day ja ededi Kosimu Airport na ya saba be family okay family entertainment VCDs DVDs any enyom ho nsem nyina why you see warehouse the prices need low so be your thought and answer 419 ewo Ghana why you see private investigations it will show us them am be ready Joe say a unit food money transfer airline tickets and our door-to-door courier service CDs and our DVDs that are both
You're listening to Conversation with GiGi. So welcome back again. Thank you for all your texts. Thank you for all your messages and all those people that have been supporting this program. It's just wonderful to know that some of the information that we have been providing concerning why it is that some of our youngsters may join at the wrong group, gangs, etc. And it's just nice to know that, you know, some of the audience are taking on board the information that we're giving. For example, when your child or your young son, you know, especially from 13, in fact, even younger, come home from school and they go straight into their bedroom and everything is quiet and they're doing your own thing, try and involve them in the household stuff. For example, family activities. For example, watching TV or
Climax.
or I don't know, taking them to the picnic, or maybe on a Saturday making time for them. Joel J, last week or maybe the last couple of weeks, we talked about if a child says that they are bored, that's just like a signal. If a child is bored and you're not taking notice of that boredom, what are they going to do? What's going to come out of it? You know, what kind of involvement are they going to be getting into? They will go out and look for that fun that may be negative. I have with me, and with pleasure, Mrs. Emilia Kwanzaa, Lady Emilia. Introduce yourself properly.
Good evening, Lady GiGi. Yes,
Good evening.
I'm Lady Emilia, and I'm so happy to be here, privileged and honored, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Also, you have a show coming up.
I do.
And I want you to tell the audience, because as you know, we're all here supporting each other.
That's right.
And number one, the type of shows that we do is to help the community.
That's right.
I want you to talk briefly about your new show.
Okay.
And let the whole world know it's coming on.
It's
And I'll be
coming
sitting there supporting you as well. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to go
By
crush
fire,
it.
by force.
Yes, by fire, by fire, fire, fire.
Fire.
So
Yes.
tell the audience a bit
Yes.
about the show that's coming.
So on August the 29th, which is next Friday, don't forget to tune in at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it's an hour show, your hour of inspiration, and it's called Go Get It. And, you know, God inspired us, it's myself and Lady Favor. So it's myself, Lady Blessing, and Lady Favor. That's next Friday at 7. And it's inspired by Mary Mary's song called Go Get It. And so it just talks about whatever your purpose is, whatever your vision is, whatever dreams and goals and desires you have in life, you know, it's time to get up and go get it. So we're speaking to different people that have made it in certain areas of life, walks of life, people from various professions, from the entertainment field, from music, from into ministry, work, authors, all kinds of people. We're going to be interviewing them and having some exclusive interviews as well with some top artists and worship leaders and singers. And we're just going to be discussing their journey and some practical tips on how people can actually get up and, you know, do some practical steps to help them achieve their goals. So that's what the show is all about. As I said, it's myself and my co-presenter, Lady Favor. And so every Friday, and also on the last Friday of every month, what we're going to be doing is everybody is going to be asked to call in and give their testimony. Doesn't matter which church you belong to, you know, we know it's our Heavenly Father that has blessed us.
That's right.
Climax.
It's called Give Thanks. So the last Friday of every month, it will be live worship, testimonies, prayer, praise. It's just all about giving thanks to God. So that's what the show is about.
Hallelujah. And we know that without God, it's impossible to achieve anything.
That's right.
And I always stress that, look, this program, although the presenters, many of us are Christians, we're Christians background, this show is also for our show, my show, Lady Emilia's show. It's also for people that are not Christians, because obviously it is good to live wisely, and some people might call the Bible a story, some people might call it words of wisdom, whatever you want to call it. There are strict scriptures in there that we can live with.
That's
so if
right.
you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, you can still and call your show.
Yes.
And talk about the good stuff the positive, especially if they're in businesses, they can call in and discuss and share how they've accomplished their businesses and what has motivated them. You're listening to Conversation with GiGi, and obviously my show is about talking about what's going on within our communities and how we can bring specialists. Like, for example, Lady Amelia has 4 children. She's been married for 15, 16 years. Her children are wonderfully turned out. So it's always a pleasure to have her on my show to discuss how she's done it. And we talked about marital issue the other day, didn't we?
We did, yes.
In the last 2 weeks, I've introduced the youth section with Pastor Joe Joseph, aka Joe J. He's meant to be here today, but I think due to being tied up in the meeting, he may be turning up late here. But we have Lady Amelia in the studio with me, and we're going to continue. As you know, I like to always give a summary. I've given some of the summary. Lady Amelia, you were listening to the show the other day.
I was.
And I want you to tell the audience that some of the stuff that we're talking about, when your child is bored, when your child is going out, when they come from school and go straight to their bedroom,
That's right.
when they become a reclusive. Tell me what you did with your handsome little boy. Because normally when he comes home, he goes straight to bed.
Yes, that's just general with teenagers. They become very introvert, and they tend to be in their room. And because psychologically, it's a time when they're going into another level of development.
Yes.
So even in terms of their brain development, their brain and their hormones are beginning to develop once again. So you find that because of that, there's a lot of changes happening. So they tend to want to be by themselves, because at some point they become confused because there's a lot of changes, like I said, happening in their body.
Yes.
You know, they're beginning to react differently to their peers, maybe to the opposite sex. And, you know, so with all these changes, some of them find it a bit confusing. So they tend to be in their room a lot.
Climax.
You ask them a question, instead of them giving you a long sentence, which they would have done when they're younger, it turns to, I'm fine. You know,
Yes.
they don't want to talk. So what I really showed, listen, it was so interested. I really wanted to call in and, you know, just ask loads of questions, but, you know, I kept listening.
Next time, call in.
It was really helpful. I will. It was really helpful. So, you know, I told them, listen, your room is for sleeping.
Exactly. I like
Your
that.
room is for sleeping. So come downstairs. If you're going to study, study downstairs. You know, it's time to come amongst the family. Come on, let's, you know, see each other. It's not just about seeing each other when you need pocket money. It's time to come downstairs.
Yes.
And, you know, just be amongst your siblings, be amongst your parents. And that's a way for me to even just keep an eye and see what's going on, because they're in their room on their laptop, on their tablet, on their iPhone, 24/7. When you think they're sleeping, no, they're not. They're under the covers watching the movie or listening to all kinds of music. So it's a way to monitor them, but it's also a way, because if they're upstairs and they've got a query or a question, they're not exactly going to come all the way downstairs or something. But if they're in front of you, they might just go, oh, that's a bit interesting. What do you think about this? Or, you know, what should I do with this situation? So having them in front of you is also another way for you to even get involved and look at what they're doing as well and monitor it as well. Because they are in front of you, they're not likely to be watching anything that's, you know, not presentable in front of the parents. So.
Exactly. I like that. I like that. I always say, even if this show gives one parent an idea as to how to interact with their child, and that's great. And I like that idea. She said from now on, he's going to, whether he likes it or not.
Whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, and he's going to get used to it.
Yes.
And especially boys, they don't talk, do they?
No.
You know, they don't talk. The intro, everything is internalized, and it's good to talk. So I like that. Also, Lady Amelia, I know you've been listening.
Yeah, that's right.
We also covered issues around why it is that children might join gangs and everything. And as always, I always do a lot and I did a couple of research today. And also I'll be giving out some websites that maybe parents can visit. There are symptoms that parents have to watch out for, and today I learned some more. And I think there are also reasons why a child may join a gang. Some of it apparently could be drug related.
Right.
So the question is, how do we know if somebody is on a child is on drugs? We have to look out for, I guess, personality changes. What do you think? Personality changes.
Yeah.
Would you say that as a mother, you would know your children?
That's
So
right.
when something changes in them, you would see it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I think it's a gradual change. So I'm sure it would not be drastic, but as parents, we should know our children. I mean, I know most of us are working and both parents may be working or we may come from single parent families, but there's some things that your child will start doing that you will tend to know that something's up. You know, even I went on Google and was researching the same thing, and it's like, have they changed their friends all of a sudden?
Yes.
The usual friend that you always see them with, now all of a sudden you see that person less and less. So now they've changed their sets of friends. Like I said earlier, they're in their room constantly. They don't, you hardly see them. It's either to come down and see what's, you know, for dinner, or because they need some money to go somewhere. Also, you know, they're a bit moody.
Yes.
They get in a bad temper. I mean, not necessarily they're going to be rude to you, but they just never seem to be in a good mood. They become moody. Sleeping habits might be one of them. They might have erratic sleeping habits where they're sleeping all day, and you know, in the middle of the night you'll see them up, or you will hear them going to the bathroom every so often. So these are some signs that you can see that, okay, something's happening to my child. They're acting a bit differently. Anything that changed behavior so drastically, little things like they're not keeping to the rules, general rules, like you say to them, come home at 6, and they won't even care to come home at like 7:30.
Yes.
And they'll just be like, well, yeah, you know, it's 7:30. And so little things like that, whereas before they knew the rules. If it's 6 o'clock, they'll be there 5 to 6 or 6 on the dot. Their manners, their mannerisms begin to drop. They don't seem to have the same manners that they used to have before. They will say please, thank you. Little things like this shows that the child is beginning to change. And so therefore, when you see things like that happen, it's time for you to wake up and don't just leave it to keep going, because the more you're leaving it, the deeper they're getting into whatever they're getting into. It could be just they're in the wrong group of friends. They're not in a gang, but it's just the wrong group of friends who maybe their homes are different. They don't have the same standards as your home. So that could be influencing them. It could be drugs, could be drink. It could be even nowadays, I've heard nowadays, the helium gas. That a lot of them, when they go to parties, they suck in the helium gas, you know, it makes their voice squeaky.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it was even on the news the other day that thing.
It makes them high.
It makes them high. And, you know, back in the day, we might have done that, you know, the helium balloons, just suck it in and you get a squeaky voice and it's funny. But now they actually sell them in little canisters and they're using that as a high. So,
oh, my dear.
You know, all kinds of things are out there to tempt our children. So we have to be aware and monitor them, watch them. When you see things start happening, begin to ask them some questions. And try to find out, you know, where are those friends you used to have?
Yeah, I think you said something very important there, because I've been stressing out. I always come back again. It's not easy to bring up children. It's not easy. I mean, I don't have any of my own yet. You know, it will be coming, I'm sure.
Amen.
But we always try to balance on this program, don't we? It's not easy. You're living in a society. You're working. So like back home, we have our aunties, grandmothers. You can down the children. Here, they're with you 24 hours, 7 days a week. But I always say, parents, if the child is now in the world, take time out. If they end up in prison, you won't be happy.
No.
It won't be your joy. You said something about it's better to catch them earlier. When your child the mood starts changing, catch it early. If you wait till 6 months, a year down the line, it may be too late. What happens if you're a parent and you realize that the mood is changing and you can't get through to that person? I mean, what have you done in the past? Because children are sometimes they might even be bullied today. I mean, it's a subject bullying is a whole topic I want to cover next time, because bullies is another situation that we need to cover. And what's your take on that? When you have a child that you were fortunate, your son did come down to watch TV with you. What happens if you have a child that doesn't want to come down? Do you think there's something really going on then?
Yeah, definitely. So at that point, you look for someone that child looks up to, because generally what happens, they become so indifferent with parents. It's like the same old nagging that they get from their parents. So even though what you're saying to them, it does make sense, you've tried and tried, their ears are now closed off to what you're saying. So even though what you're saying makes out is exam period, everyone's, you know, getting their results back. So you may have been nagging, study, and the results have come out. And because you know you were always the one nagging them, maybe they just didn't listen to you. But now the results have come out. They've realized, oh, actually mum was saying something correct or dad was saying something correct. But when you get to the point where they're not listening, then you need to bring in maybe someone like a mentor, an older sibling or a friend of the family, or maybe if you've got a sister brother of yourself, that you can get them as an uncle and aunt to speak to them, someone that they see as, you know, cool, or I can speak to them, you know, just a different voice. They need to hear a different voice from yours coming at them with another perspective, and not too many people, because then they kind of think like, oh, you're just chatting to too many people about my business, mum, what are you doing that for? So just one or two people, get them to while speak to them, encourage them, you know, let them know what's going on. Because I always say, why would you go to the doctor and not tell them your symptoms? You know, it's not a guessing game. So if you're trusting that person enough to speak into that child's life, then tell them what's going on, and then, you know, ask them once in a while, not straight away, because otherwise the child will know you just spoke to them. So wait a bit, and, you know, after some time, when things have cooled down, after you've nagged them, then just let them call. Oh, I'm just calling to see how you're doing. Yes, how you getting on? And then they can advise them and counsel them, and you just take it from there. You see the child's reaction to it. But there's little steps that you can do, but sometimes it has to be tough love. I mean, they have to hit rock bottom sometimes, and that might be their wake-up call for them. You know, so
that's a very good point when you say that. I didn't like it when, for example, if my mother,
Climax Radio.
if I was, you know, up to something that my mother didn't like or my father didn't like, and they would go and talk to another person about your business. I'm quite private, so you said something that we have to be careful as parents. If you are a parent, that whoever you talk to as a mentor, your child has to trust that person or let that person.
Yeah.
It's something that, hey, by the way, welcome, George.
Hello.
I was panicking for a few seconds. I thought, I hope his meeting finishes quickly because we need him here. Say hello, introduce yourself again.
Listeners, my name is Minister Joel, aka Joel J, and I'll be speaking on behalf of my experiences and for the youth. And I hope you're blessed.
And George is also, I would say, you're a youth pastor, aren't you? Yeah, he's a very good youth pastor, and he's so calm with them. I think you're the perfect person here. What Lady Amelia said, you said the same thing last week, didn't you? That I mean, we're sort of wrapping up this section of why a child or a young boy or young girl might join a gang. I want us to do gangs on girls. Actually, that's a whole load of issue that I never. You said girls are doing worse than boys. We need to cover that and find out why it is that a young beautiful girl will become so aggressive. So that's not the show in itself that perhaps we can cover maybe next week or the week after. It's similar to what Lady Amelia said about the child might even come from a good home, but it's going through some kind of issues or challenges. So we have to be careful who we select, isn't it? Putting yourself in a young man's, which you have been a young boy before, back in the day, if you were going through challenges, well, how would you want your parents to have approached you? Like, for example, you wouldn't want them to go and talk business, would you? Or does it depend on the character of the child?
Putting myself in that scenario, it's a hard one to answer for me personally, because I didn't have a relationship with my parents where I wanted them to know my personal issues in life and things like that.
Yeah.
I would give them snippets of, you know, things that had taken place or how they was going, but I wouldn't actually run to them and tell them, oh, can we talk about this, or because I didn't have that relationship. So I think it also comes down to, I wouldn't say parenting, but relationships. It depends on the relationship you have with your daughter, the relationship you have with your son. You know, there are some parents that have like a very strong bond and friendship with their children. Others have a strong bond as well, but in a different. They get on very well. They respect their parents. They love their parents. They can sit down and watch TV with their parents. When it comes to things like boyfriends and girlfriends, or they won't talk to their mum and dad about it, which isn't an issue, but it just depends on the relationship. And me personally, from my experience, I wouldn't have actually gone to my parents. I drew the line with certain things, and that's probably one of the reasons why I kind of entered into some relationships with friends or groups or different people from the area, because
As a support.
And because obviously there was some kind of there was a void. I usually say a void or a vacuum which hadn't been filled, and I'm not putting that onus or responsibility on my mum and dad, because they did the best that they could. But as a young man, I didn't have a relationship with them where I felt even comfortable talking to them about some maybe adolescence issues and things like that. So I think I wouldn't like to put the blame on the youth or on the parents, but it's just the relationship you have with your child or your son or your daughter, and it's finding a way for that relationship to work so they don't feel they have to go outside and get involved in things which they don't need to, basically.
So when you said that you found it difficult to speak to your parents, what would have helped you? Would a mentor? Would it? How did you resolve? You resolved it through joining like your own little group of friends, good or bad. And sometimes it might have been good, sometimes it might have been bad. This is what we want to avoid this with the listeners. That if they do have a child that is going through a challenge, that I guess it's up to how would your parents have? Did they even know that you might have had a challenge, or were they too busy?
They were too busy. I'd say they were quite busy.
And also, you probably didn't show that you had an issue.
No,
that's another thing.
The thing is, I hid issues from them.
Yeah.
And they were slightly busy. So it was a balance. They weren't too busy to spend time with me. That's not what I'm saying. But they weren't focused on challenges, because I never presented a challenge. Like they would never get a telephone call from the school, so that meant everything was fine.
Yes.
And that's not always the case. You shouldn't wait for the letter to come through the post or to get a telephone call from the teacher before you think that maybe there could be something, which is challenging your child. So I never presented them with any cause for concern. So they just left me alone to my own devices. And because, police never came to the house, they never got a letter in the post, they never got any phone calls from the school, they just thought everything was okay. So.
Lady Miller, you've got kids. Some children are good at hiding their emotions. So I think I'm going to be. I hope I'm not going to be a nightmare parent, because I'm going to be watching every move. Any scratch, I'll be in the school. I think I'm going to be one of those parents. Any scratch, I'll be in the school. So we have a child and boys don't communicate, not like girls. Yeah. So would you say there's a matter of monitoring your child? I mean, you said it before, not being like. It's not controlling thing, but watching them without them knowing that you're watching them. Would you agree? Because, for example, what Georgia was saying, I'm learning from this that I would be watching my son. They won't know that I'm watching them. Yeah. You can sense if there's something wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, you got to read between the lines, basically. Reading between the lines simply means, like, for instance, when they're good in everything, like you said, you don't get a letter from the school, you don't get any problems with anything, but then all of a sudden they're not doing their chores or something. Something's dropped. Something's different about them. They're not keeping up with what they used to be doing. And it's just little things that will give you the hint, because sometimes they could be doing everything to cover up, like you said, but then there's certain things that they're doing that you just know they're a bit off. No, they used to have manners. Now all of a sudden they don't have manners. They're just like, yeah, what? I'm alright. Yeah, innit? Whereas before they'd be like, yes, mom, yes, dad. But now all of a sudden it's like, yes, hello, on the phone kind of thing. So little things like that might be an eye opener for you. And like I said, the big thing, like I've been reading up, is about the friends, and that was an eye opener for me. That the change of friends, all of a sudden, the group of friends that you used to roll with, they're not walking with them anymore.
So you literally went on their site. You researched
from the show. I was like, oh gosh, let me see, like disengaged children, because when they become disengaged with you as a parent, whereas before, like when I look at my younger ones, because they're big age range, 17. 14, 12, and 9. So when I look at the younger ones, they're like my purse and my handbag. They're clingy. They're all over me. They're every minute they want to tell me something. But with the older ones, they're kind of like, once in a while they'll say something, and then and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is not normal. Normally you come and tell me
more open before.
Before, like, you say everything. I could ask, hey, what's going on? I could put my arm around. Now it's kind of like they're walking 2 minutes ahead of me. I'm like, hey, I'm not looking that old. What are you talking about? So yeah, little things like that you begin to notice. But when it goes too far, like when they don't even want to talk, you'll be like, you're all right. Then you just have to open your eyes and say, wait a minute, something's going on, and take a step back, and then begin to monitor them, begin to watch. Are they doing their chores? Are they coming in on time? Do I see them studying? Who are they talking to on the phone? What's they call? Me, sometimes I just take that phone. I just be looking on the WhatsApp, looking on the Instagram, the chat, the Snapchat, and all these things. I just read it. I just, I'm just checking the phone, something, and I'll read all the messages, and I'll find everything out from there. So that is a way to do it. But I wouldn't let them know that I've done it. But I've done that just to keep an eye to see, like, what are they saying when they know I'm not looking. Climax. So then I know how they talk when I'm not there. Or sometimes I'll send the younger ones to go and eavesdrop in the conversation. So these are little things that I just do to keep an eye out. And like parents, we have to do those things. Otherwise, they're not going to come and tell you they're misbehaving. So you have to just check them that way. When you notice that something's going on, it's not every child that will be rude or do something, but there's little things that you can do just to keep an eye on them, and once in a while test them on something and see how they do or whatever. Then you know that, okay, they're still on track, they're still okay, or no, there's a problem, I need to deal with it. Me, I love Google. You can just Google. If you see that they're doing something, just Google. Or listen to Lady GiGi.
Google, if Google is listening, this is free advertising here, and right now we're looking for sponsors. This is, I've started telling people that, all the presenters, we've got our professional jobs outside of here, and we are volunteers because, we just want to do stuff for the community. And so now I've started advertising for sponsors. Hey guys out there, if you're listening, we need a good fan. We have a beautiful studio. It's just a brand new studio, and this studio really, God is going to move it somewhere for the community, help people. It's not just here we're not just here to be on air. We're here because we're passionate about helping our community. So whatever show that is going, even if it's music, if it's your show, which is Go Get It. This conversation with GiGi, you've got you've got Vivi Nash. She does stuff on Saturdays as well. So right now I'm demanding for a fan. So if you're out there, get in touch. We need a nice fan.
Yes, we need
and
sponsors.
we need some good sponsors out here too. We also need the fridge, don't we? So we can we need a fridge, lots and lots of drinks, so that we can cater for our guests. But having said that, this is a very serious topic, and I like this word disengaged, and I'm just typing it on Facebook now. When your child becomes disengaged, that means they're sort of moving away from you now.
Antisocial. Not in a bad way, but they're becoming less and less social. And
with you, with family,
not engaged with education, they're not engaged with life in general. They just don't have no aim anymore. It's just like,
well, that's dangerous then, isn't it? Because I thought the disengagement might be maybe within the home, but it could also mean within the school. So I mean, I did some research as well. Disengagement could also mean that some of the children could be dyslexic. That's another thing. I find that I've got 1 or 2 friends that are dyslexic, and they are like nearly millionaires. They are the most brightest people. I think Richard Branson and people like that, some of them are dyslexic. So another thing, when a child is dyslexic meaning that they can't read the right, they see words upside down. So if you're listening in the wrong order, so their brain, their brain is geared not to. Joe J, talk more about it. You seem to know more about it. They can't see words properly.
From what I've seen and from what I've read about dyslexia, it's when their brain processes the word in the wrong order. So they may read words back to front or in a different order, or the way their eye picks the word is in a different order. So it takes them longer to read a sentence or pronounce a word. But I think that's the left side of their brain. So don't quote me on this. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But because of that, the right side of their brain works even quicker than the average, to compensate for that dysfunction of the left side of the brain. So you find a lot of people that are dyslexic, they are extremely or highly intelligent, extremely well
very,
articulate.
yes.
They're usually really, really good at maths,
Yes,
mathematics,
yes.
and processing information really, really quickly. But when it comes to like the reading of books and words and sentence, sometimes it takes them slightly longer. But it's compensated in other areas, which may be visuals or mathematics or calculating or even science.
It's compensated, but some of the programs we've seen and some of these so-called naughty children, the child is not naughty unless there's something going on. And the ones that end up joining gangs or joining a bad company, they become frustrated in the school environment. I think now teachers have got 35 pupils in a class. It's just too much for them to handle. So I would advise, and I'm sure you would agree, that if you're a parent and you're helping your child with homework, you will know if they're dyslexic. And the parents that aren't doing that for whatever reason, their child will become frustrated in the school. And like you said, they get disengaged, they get frustrated because they want to learn, they can't. Can you imagine the words that you can't understand? You can't. I wouldn't like to be in that situation. So another reason for maybe joining a group of not so-called good friends could be because they're frustrated in the school area, in the home, nobody's understanding them, and so they'll join a group that they call, they would deem as support.
You see, one thing which I've seen as well, which I've experienced growing up, is that the youth, they need guidance, but at such a young age, no one knows how to guide.
Right.
You know, everyone wants to be the leader or the boss, but they're not even experienced in issues of life to even lead anyone.
That's right.
So I think what happens is when the youth join a group, they don't join the group because they want to commit crime, or they don't join the group because they want to, you know, be bad or be seen as
Climax.
threat to society or in the community. But it's a sense of belonging, and that sense of belonging usually comes because, as you said, disengagement. You know, because I believe every good parent would teach their child their worth and where they belong.
That's right.
And you know what you expect from your child and what your child should expect from you as a parent. But somewhere along the line, whether it's, you know, mixing with friends, that whole sense of belonging becomes tainted, and they feel that they don't belong in the house. Maybe they feel that my parents are too old, they don't understand me. I need to join another group who understand me, you know, who speak like me, who listen to the same music as me, who go through the same things on a daily basis as me. So they disconnect themselves from the home environment because there's a sense of not belonging to that environment anymore. And Lady GiGi, you said something which I want to touch upon as well, because we're talking a lot about the parents.
Right, yeah.
I believe that teachers as well, they have a very, very important role to play.
Yeah, totally.
The reason why I say this is because, I was in secondary school between 1994 and 1999. And when I was in school, everything was literally straightforward. You had 4 sets of classes, and then you had another 4 set of classes. So there were 8 sets, 8 groups of classes each year, and the top 4 were seen as the more intelligent classes, and the bottom 4 were the slightly more. And you know, we often used to fight because I was in the intelligent group.
How are you?
Fortunately.
I was in the C. I was in the C group, A, B, C, D. I was in the average group, and I consider myself highly intelligent. Thank you very much.
That classification, it caused so much violence in my school. Because we had people who were borderline, but were placed in the wide grouping. And they always say, "Oh, I'm more intelligent than you," or "We're the boffins," we're you know. We're the teacher's pets, and we used to be like, no, we're not. We're just, you know, we're not dumb, we're not stupid, and we used to end up fighting on a daily basis because we're both trying to defend our classification. And if you look at what's happening with the youth today, apparently it's all about postcode.
Yes, I don't understand that one.
Defending a group that you belong to, and there are schools that they encourage that kind of grouping. For example, nowadays, we've got something called special needs, and I fully support special needs. I do. I believe that there are a lot of acronyms within special needs these days, which maybe shouldn't be there. But I believe that, you know, children who have a special educational need should be supported.
That's right.
But there are some acronyms where I don't believe it's a special educational need.
Okay.
When I was in school, we didn't have anything called emotional behavior disorder.
Climax.
And hiding around children who have emotional behavior or who have been classified as having an emotional behavior disorder. Unfortunately, a lot of them are from Afro-Caribbean societies, and they carry the same characteristics as some of the people I grew up with in school. And it seems that a lot of them are put into that classification of having an emotional disorder because they're slightly more aggressive. Or when they sing, they raise their voice more.
I mean, it's more or less racism a bit as well.
Exactly, but because they're not from that culture, they think that it's antisocial. So they call it an emotional disorder. I mean, how do you measure an emotional disorder? What is a normal emotion? You know? So the thing is, we've got a lot of kids who are put into special needs groups, and they feel like they're being called disabled, or they feel like they're being called not perfect or not right because they're in that group, and a lot of them are just behaving how their mom and dad speak at home.
Just to motivate them.
Yeah, you see, my mom and dad, when, you know, God bless my dad, he passed away, God bless him. You see, when my mom and dad were raising me, they used to shout a lot. That was their way of communicating. And I always say to my sisters, why do they have to shout? They're in the same room. They're not arguing. Why are they shouting? And my sister used to say, oh, that's just the way they communicate. And when I would raise the topic in school, my friends would say, oh yeah, my mom and dad do the same. It's an African thing. Or it's a Ghanaian thing. You see? So when Kwabena or whoever starts shouting in the classroom out of joy, or he's talking vocally in the classroom, but he's talking very loud, the teacher may tell him to stand up or get out because she believes that he's not acting in an appropriate manner. So there are some cultural, there are some cultural issues that a lot of teachers don't understand, you know, and it's because of that people are being put in groups. When they're put into that group, it can have a very negative impact on them. They may feel like they're being targeted or singled out, and that also can have a domino effect.
Now you've touched on a very important point. I mean, that's probably another whole show, and it's still going on. I mean, 30 years ago when I was in school, it's still going on now. They don't understand the culture. And you find that majority of the people that are in the gang, even in the USA, some of the research I did today, the websites I found, most of them are USA based actually, but it will help people. Majority of them are blacks, are Afro-Caribbeans or African Americans, whatever they want to call themselves. We talk loud. It's part of our culture. And what you're saying is true. There are lots of intelligent black youngsters that have been, because you had A, B with the top ones, and then C, D. There was more or less like the average. C average, D is more or less like, you're lucky if the teacher thinks anything of you. That classification is wrong.
When you're very young and maybe not mature, I'm not saying that all youth are immature. There are some that are very bright and, you know, ahead of their time. But when you put someone who doesn't get things or doesn't understand, and you tell them that you're a D, and your friend who lives across the road from you is an A, and you haven't explained to them that, you know, we have no other way of classing you so that you can be marked appropriately. When you don't take the time to explain to them why they're in a lower grade, or why their letter has to be a lower number, or whatever the classification is, it's going to have a very negative effect. They're going to think that the teachers are against them. They're going to think everyone's laughing at them. They're going to feel alone. When mum or dad are angry at them for whatever reason, that on top of being in a D instead of an A is going to have a negative impact on them. So they're going to walk around with this chip on their shoulder. And if they enter into a company or a group of friends who have the same chip on their shoulder,
World War III.
Exactly.
But I think worse than that, you grow up thinking, if you don't have, like, I always have to bring my mommy because she was such a strong influence in my life anyway. She always said positive things about me. Anytime I was negative about myself, she always says positive about. That's why I'm always so proud of who I am as an African, etc. Some parents don't do that. So when you're put in a D group, you grow up, unless you go to university, you will grow up thinking it's a really psychological thing. If you're in the A and then because you can always tell the A and B team were always confident,
Very confident.
and then the C and D team, they were all like they're all little groups, and they were the ones that were always fighting.
Yes. Yes.
You never see them. The ones that would wear the short mini skirt would try and compensate for their beauty, not the brain. Oh, I don't know. If that's still going on, it needs to stop.
It's in schools.
It's still going on 30 years on.
As a parent, if this is going on, by the time your child comes home, you wonder why they're giving you attitude.
Yeah.
Because they spent a whole day with people who are angry that they're in a set Z or a set D,
Yes.
who have nothing but negative things to say about the system and the school, and they've got their own political ideas about why they're in that group.
Yeah.
And they'll moan about it and talk about it. By the time they get home and you say, "Oh, Charles, how was school?" "Oh, don't worry about it. I don't want to talk about it." Or, "Oh, it's all right." And they'll go upstairs to their room.
But you said something. I think teachers. I'll bring you in, Lady Emilia. This show, I haven't mentioned teachers so much. It's since we started this youth program thing. But whether they like it or not, I think teachers are probably more powerful.
Oh yeah.
When our children are in school, are they not there for 6-7 days a week, a day, 7 hours a day? They are very. If you have a bad teacher teaching your child, and you're not in your child's face, like positively in the home, you're in trouble. Teacher, if you're a teacher out there, they have a big responsibility. You have people like, sometimes people like Oprah and people like, some of these famous people have always said, my teacher encouraged me when others gave up. So when you have a teacher that's, because you know the people in the C and D group, I remember they didn't really pay much attention to that group of people.
No.
They did not. So in your, for example, if you have a child that's in the C and D, and your child comes home and, like George said, as a mother, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think the relationship between parent and teacher needs to be really, really strong, because the teacher and the parent are the two most influential people in that child's life. They will have friends, different friends. Yes, the friends have an influence and have their part to play. But in terms of giving actual structural guidance, I mean proper positive guidance, the teacher and the parent need to work together.
Yes.
And if you've got a teacher, God forbid you've got a teacher that has already, classified and labeled your child as, a time waster, and they're not interested in education, that teacher, to be honest, is going to basically write them off and not even spend time with them.
Teacher, be an agent.
I'm telling you, I was, a few years ago, I used to work, especially with like the under 8s.
Yes.
And the things that go on in that teachers staff room, the things that you will hear them saying about children and their parents, and they've already made up their mind about the parents and the family. Oh, that parent is this. So they don't even want to even bother to teach your child. Your child will be in the class, and they have their children that they know, oh, this parent either gives them Christmas gift, or this parent, you see them with that parents' evening. So they will put all their time and energy into getting those children to pass, whether it's the SATs or the GCSEs or whatever. So the other children will be left. And obviously, when they see that, oh, they couldn't make question A and B and it's wrong, then they're like, oh, well, I can't do it. When you give them something else more difficult, it's like, I can't do it, and they give up. And then what do? They find something to pass the time, they start fidgeting, then they get into trouble, then they get kicked out of the class, then it becomes like, now they have to turn into the class clown, because that's the only way they'll get acceptance for people to say, oh, okay, you're not in our group because you're not that bright, but at least you make us laugh. Sure, you can come in our group now. So then their mind is switched off from work and switched on to, how can I entertain these people so I can stay in their group? What silly thing can I do to get kicked out of the class, because that way I will not get a bad mark because you won't do the work at all. And so parents and teachers who, just tend to say, oh, this child didn't do so well last term, so I'm not even going to bother with them. That's what teachers do, to be honest. Unless you as a parent go in there and start talking to them and letting them know you're a parent who's interested in your child's education, they're not interested.
No, what you're saying is definitely true. I have seen with my own eyes as well that if you're a parent, you're not interested in your child's education, you're right. They've got 35 pupils to take care of. So your child, if you're not interested in your child, they have to move on to the ones that are really interested. If you're parents out there, I know you're busy, I know you're tired, but you brought this child into the world and it's a blessing. You need to start taking note of what is going on in the schools. Some of the parents, are leaving the child. They dress them. They go. They don't even go to parent schooling. They don't know what's going on in the school. Some of these children are being bullied by some of these teachers. I saw with my own eyes some of them, and we're not here to like downgrade teachers. It's very difficult teaching in this country. I couldn't be a teacher in this country.
It's difficult.
Could you?
No.
I mean, mind you, you're a youth pastor.
Yeah, I mean, it's different.
It's different because the Christian environment.
Yeah, I mean, because being a teacher, you see, you're on the front line.
In the public, like in the public domain.
24/7, you're in the front line, and not only that, you're judged on how well your class does. So there's that pressure.
Yes.
With me, I engage with people, I speak to them, I share testimonies, I pray for them. You know, I laugh and joke with people in the church, just to give them a sense of peace and hope, and just a reminder that, you know, I'm a human being. You know, being a pastor or a youth pastor doesn't mean that you're a robot, you don't have feelings. So that's my role. But being a teacher, you're actually judged on how the percentage of how many of your children are passing each year. And then you've got a child that doesn't want to talk, that just wants to throw things in the classroom, or even try and attack you. I mean, I'm not putting all the blame on the child nor the teacher, but I couldn't be a teacher. You know, respect the job that they do first.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And, you know, second of all, I want to share a testimony. Well, it's not much of a testimony, but it's more of something which I experienced. I had the honor of going to visit a school.
Right.
A while ago, because it's linked to the work I do with recruitment and schools.
Oh, right, yes.
And I visited, it was a pupil referral unit. So I'm not going to mention the name of the pupil referral unit or the pupil. But there was an individual who was very well known in the area as being a gang leader.
Right.
He was about 16 years old, no, about 15 years old. And basically, a pupil referral unit is a unit where children who are bad or classed as bad are sent to because the schools can't handle them anymore. And I had the privilege of going to this unit to sit down and talk to the head teacher just about recruitment and staff and how she finds staff to actually want to teach children who are supposedly that bad. And she told me about this young man whose parents were never in the house. And because of that, he paid most of the bills at the age of 15.
Right.
He had a younger sister, and he paid most of the bills through selling drugs. And everyone knew that he was a drug dealer. He would sometimes bring drugs into the pupil referral unit. And he was extremely aggressive. He was a very challenging young man, to the sense where nobody could control him. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this is because it took one teacher
Climax,
in that pupil referral unit to sit him down and not tell him what to do, or not even correct his wrongs, but just listen to him and find out what he loved and what he really cared about. And this young man, who was a mentor at the time in the referral unit, a football coach stroke mentor, found out that all he would talk about was either music, rapping, selling drugs, or his little sister. Now, his little sister was 10 years old, and no one in the school could control this guy, so they came up with a plan where they would speak to his mum, they wrote her a letter, and asked if his sister could spend a week in the pupil referral unit with him, and to see how her older brother behaves. And surprisingly, she stayed a week, and he was literally an angel. He didn't get into any fights, he wasn't rude to any teachers, because they discovered that the thing that he cared about the most was his younger sister, and he would hate for his sister to witness the way he behaves and the way he treats other people. So they decided to keep her in for another week, and the good behavior continued. And then they took her out of the pupil referral unit, and for the rest of the school year, he was one of the best, behaved kids in the school. He achieved one of the highest grades in the school. He was on time. He wasn't involved in any altercations or anything like that. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because for teachers, that is, not for parents, sometimes it takes you not to kind of reprimand them, or find out what they like, find out what they love, find out what they care about, and engage them that way. Because when you find out what they care about the most, you can get their attention. And it's only when you get their attention that you can really influence them in a positive way. And he probably didn't even know that he was being influenced in a positive way. All he knew is that I'm not going to misbehave with my little sister in the classroom.
That is an awesome testimony, because what you've just said, we can help somebody out there. If somebody's in a gang and someone can take time to listen and find out what's going on in their head, that person can change. I think also when you're in a gang, they're also motivated by money. become alone to yourself.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing this show, and I'm at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how can we help these people? How can we help get them out? I'm not here to just talk and then go home and sleep. We want to try and help somebody. Right now, if I was to see a gang of youths out there, I've got that spirit of boldness. I don't have a problem approaching them, but I would approach them to find out what can make you stop. Because most of the time, they're in the gang because the home environment, dyslexia may be in the school that nobody's paying attention. What else could there be? We talked about father being absent in the home. Fathers must be in the home. If you're a man listening right now and you're divorced or you've got children with your ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, you've had the child with the woman out there.
Climax Radio.
Well, it has to be with the woman, obviously. Out. Parents, I'm not interested in whether you're not talking anymore, the man hurt you, the woman hurt you. Think about that child. That male spirit is so important, isn't it? I'm beginning to realize that as a woman that will be married soon, the male environment is very important, and we need to respect that. And I think this testimony you've just given is something that we need to somebody to listen to. That if you've got a child that is even in prison now, and youth center, offenders, approach that person and find out what it is that they're talking about more.
What do they care about? What takes up most of their thoughts, their time? Because you can find out a young person's passion by what they talk about the most, what they spend most of their money on, or what they spend most of their time doing. These are indications of what they're passionate about. And if it's a negative thing, then I think it's probably a challenge for a parent, for a teacher to turn that negative into a positive. It is achievable because for whatever reason the child is joining a gang, they've got a passion for something.
Yes.
There's something driving them, and if it's negative, if what's driving them is negative, then you can turn that into a positive. If they're being driven by money, find a way that they can do something.
Yes. Yes.
Because if it's money, you can substitute that criminal activity and say, look, here's an organization that you can work for. They're looking for young people to get involved. Join the group, join the organization. You earn this amount of money. You're good at it, so it's easy. You won't even see it as work. Get involved. Get some more money on a weekly basis. Whilst going to school. You can do it on weekends. So if it's money that's driving the person to get involved in gangs, then there's always a positive. There's always, where there's darkness, when light comes in, the darkness will leave. So if there's something that you're doing which isn't right, then find a positive way to kind of turn it on the head, Like, for example, people always talk about Facebook this, Facebook that. I know that a lot of social, networks, social websites can be very, very dangerous. But if you can use it for good, then it can be more powerful than it is dangerous. And I think it's all about finding the good in what drives them, finding the good in that, and then focusing on that. Another thing which I mentioned is, for example, some of these teachers. I don't know why I'm talking about teachers so much.
But they're important. They're important.
They focus on their upbringing and the way they were raised. So that's another issue, because if they weren't raised in let's say a two-parent home, or they were missing a father figure, if it's a female teacher, she will never understand young men. Never, ever. If she didn't have a father figure in the household, she will not understand how to reach out to a 15-year-old classroom and understand what he's going through.
But she can learn.
Well,
but I hear what you're saying.
Not at your own child's expense, hopefully. So
she can study. She can study, but you're being real. You're being real.
I mean, when I say she can never, let me take that back. It's not that she can never. It will be more difficult for her to understand that child in a classroom if it's a male. Because that spirit was absent in her upbringing. Same for a man, a young man. If there's a male teacher in a classroom who, for whatever reason, they may have lost their mother, or the mum was in their household, it will be difficult for him to reach out to a young lady growing up. Because we have this phrase, they call it daddy's girl, isn't it? Because the daughters, the young ladies, they gravitate towards their fathers, don't they? And that's purely because, there's a connection between a daughter and a father as there is for a son and his mom.
Mother,
You
yeah.
know, so if that's been missing, then it's going to affect the way these teachers teach the youth. And the other example I was going to give was, for example, taking the time to understand these youth, these kids.
Right.
Like, let's say a guy called Charlie or David, when a teacher's teaching, he may be drawing on the table. David will get thrown out of the classroom for graffitiing.
Right.
But someone who kind of pays attention to detail, a teacher may say, look, David's not actually a bad child, but he engages himself through artwork.
Yeah.
So let's get him involved in more artwork. Let's get him involved in more after extracurricular activities to do with art and painting and the more creative side. That's obviously what he's engaged in slightly more. Or for example, there may be a pupil who, whenever you're talking, he's tapping the pen. Maybe she learns through percussion, playing instruments, steel pans, the drums, what have you. These are all positive things which we could get the kids to focus on instead of telling them to shut up, stop making noise, they're bad, get out, stop disrupting the classroom. You know, no child is bad. God doesn't create anyone bad, but because of lack of understanding, we put people into categories, and once they've been put in a category which they shouldn't be in, they're never going to fit. And if they're never going to fit, it's never going to be a positive category for them to belong to.
I think being a teacher is a calling. I'm not sure if everybody the calling, and
some people do it for the money.
Some people are doing it for the money. So if it's not your calling, you're not going to pay attention to a child.
No.
And also some of these teachers, some of them have got problems, haven't they? Because
problems.
they've got their own problems. But I say if you have it, don't transfer it onto a child, because when you look at a child that's had a very bad teacher experience. I watch a lot of talk show, hence I'm doing a talk show. I watch a lot of talk shows. I watch a lot of documentary that talks. Anything that talks, I'm watching it. And some of the you have a 50-year-old that's still affected by what a teacher said. I take really serious issue to that. Negativity, when you say for a teacher out there, no matter what problems you have, you've decided to do this job, do it diligently. Because that child that you're putting down could be the next millionaire. Have you noticed some of these millionaires go back looking for their teachers, thank them and bless them with money?
It's true. It's true.
So if you're a teacher out there, and we appreciate that their job is hard, though. It is hard. It is hard because children these days are so rude. Some of the teachers are being beaten up, are being slapped. So we have to cover this issue as well. And if you're a parent and you have a child that's beating up a child, then you need to question your parenting. Because a teacher is there to teach, not to be. So we have to balance it, don't we? We've got good ones, we've got bad ones, and there's all these issues. So how do we resolve it? We're resolving it by what we're saying. Hopefully the advice is coming out.
And I think to know the type of child, the way they learn is really important, because like you touched on something, and it's about the style of learning as well. Because you've got people that are kinesthetic learners, which is they learn through movement. They need to be doing something. They're practical, hands-on. And so those are the people that they like to do, woodwork, something with their hands. Then you've got people who are visual learners. They need to see a film. They don't want to sit there and read the book. They want to just watch the film about the book. Then they'll go, oh, now I get it. There's people that are, they're readers. They need to read it. They need to see it written down step by step, what you're asking them to do. Other than that, they're not listening. You can be a practical teacher telling them, watch me and then learn. And there's people that will not get you at all. But when you write it on the blackboard, step 1, step 2, step 3, they'll get you straight away. There's people that are audio learners. They need to just listen to what the teacher is saying, and they will get it. Whether you put it in a book, they're not listening. But what you said, they will remember it and they'll go back and do it. So, as parents, as, teachers, mentors, these are the things that we need to look at. What type of learner is that child? What type of thing? And then that will help us to know how to engage them. Because if they're a kinesthetic learner, a practical learner, then you need to take them outside. They need to learn in the outdoor environment somehow. Whether you're, there's so many ways children can learn things. Even being outside is a way of teaching them maths. Me, when I take the kids shopping, I'm like, right, let's calculate as we're going along. It's estimation.
It's true.
Even from a young age, you get them into it from there. So when they get to 16, you're not telling them, come on, you need to learn maths, and they're not getting it. They've got it from a young age. So this is building blocks that we need to do from a young age. Whether it's reading, you don't need to just let them read some boring books. Let them read what they're interested in. If they're interested in sports, let them read their sports magazine. Let them go to the shop with their pocket money and buy their little comic book. They're still reading. at the end of the day.
it's still.
So there's different ways, but because sometimes we're so focused on the, the old-fashioned way of this is a reading book, something that looks as thick as a, an encyclopedia. If it's not that thick, then it's not reading. What are you talking about? This book doesn't mean nothing. So we have to think about today's world, because there's so much distractions. And this is another thing. There's so many things pulling on young people's minds, from their iPad to their tablet to the TV to the laptop. And with all of this information being thrown at them, we're expecting them to sit still in the class. Meanwhile, they've got so much information, everything's so quick, everything's on the go, right now, and then you expect them to sit there for an hour doing nothing. Of course they're going to be tapping, because in their mind they're thinking of that song they just played. It's true. Of course they're going to be, wanting to talk about, what they just saw on their tablet. So this is another thing that as teachers they have to understand, that there's so many things being stimulating the brain. If you're just sitting there dictating to them, you're not stimulating them.
That's it.
So even as parents, when we're talking, we have to be practical. Throw something in there to make them. Sometimes when I'm talking to the kids, I'll pull them up and say, here's an example, and then we'll reenact something. And I say, that's what I'm talking about. So this is how I do with them. Even if we're at home, but if we're doing Bible study, I'll be like, right, come on, you're Jonah. You're this one, and make it practical for them.
Yes.
They can visualize it, they can feel it, they're taking part. It's not just talk to them and let them listen. They'll get bored, they're not stimulated.
It's true. I love what you just said, because it's so easy to say, teach your child, teach your child, teach your child. We all quote Proverbs, teach your child the way you should go and you should never depart from it. We all quote that quotation. But how do you teach the child?
Yeah.
Because I believe it's not teaching the child unless the child remembers it and then does it afterwards. If you're just saying it to the child, you're not teaching them until you actually see them repeat it and keep on repeating it. You're just dictating to them or ordering them or commanding them. And when Jesus was alive, he taught his disciples through doing the things that he said. He would often teach with a child on his lap, and he would demonstrate that, these are my sheep. If anyone should hurt any of my children, these are the things Jesus did. Everything he did on earth, he demonstrated. He didn't just say it, he did it. And I think as parents, teachers, people with responsibility in the community, shopkeepers, whoever, if you feel that you've got what it takes to teach someone better, or influence someone in a positive way, they need to see it, not just hear it. If you're telling someone that violence isn't good, then don't let them ever see violence around you, or you being a part of violence. If you're teaching forgiveness, if you're teaching decency, decorum, they have to see it. 'Cause they don't learn by what you say, they learn by what you do. So they have to see the way you're behaving, the way your character, the way you carry your life. When they start to see it, they remember. And they don't remember what you said, they remember the actions you took, and then they'll follow suit.
So true. I remember when one of the kids was really young, and they went out to play, and somebody swore and said the F word, and we don't swear. So they came in and they were just like, oh, happy. Oh, guess what? I've learned a new word. And they said the word, and I was like, huh? Have you ever heard me say that word? And I broke it down to them. I explained to them what it was. Of course, I gave them the little tutu tap, right? But they got it, because I said to them, do you hear me saying that word? Is it a word that you hear us saying? No. Well then, so don't you ever repeat it, because we don't say it, so I don't expect you to be putting that as part of your language. So this is like what you're saying. They learn by example. You cannot be expecting them not to go out there and be smoking and drinking, but you have your little talk in the evening and you're telling them not to go out and drink. You're telling them, you need to stay home and study. They never see you pick a book and read. My husband is always saying that one. Because if they don't see you reading, how can you be telling them read? So, put down the TV, then they also need to see you put the remote control down and do something as well. So they learn by example. It's so true. So true.
Whilst you're both talking, I can't even find this. Ephesians 5, and it's talking about the man and the woman, humbling and respect. But there's a section in, I can't find it on here. But it's also saying the parents, you shouldn't provoke our children.
Yeah,
that's so important, isn't it? Parents, some of them provoke the children.
It's true. I'm fair, and I hold my hand up sometimes.
Why would that happen? Because you're tired.
Yes,
it's human,
they
isn't
can
it?
get on your last nerve sometimes because of the way they behave, and sometimes we do tend to forget that we were once kids. But I know what you're saying. Parents shouldn't provoke their children, but it's because we want the best for them. And it's like sometimes because the times have changed. The way how I used to relate to my friends is not the way that my kids relate to their friends now. There's different language that they use. There's certain things that I would say cool, and they're just like, no, that word is so old. You can't be saying cool to me. What is cool? They don't understand. So when you're trying to communicate with them and they're not getting you, it's because sometimes you need to learn what are the words. So sometimes I learn some of their lingo. I do some of whatever they do, the things that they're into nowadays, and they laugh. Like if they see me doing their zonta, they always laugh. But I try to do things on their level so that they can still see me as an approachable person, that when I'm talking to them, they will listen. But when you just try to come as an authoritarian too much, then they just shut down.
What I mean by, I know you want the best for them, but there are some parents that provoke the children. And I think what I'm trying to say from... Sometimes a child might just be a good child, but the parents will walk in there in a bad mood. You start shouting at that child, you start abusing them. That's provocation. That's what I mean by that. So as parents, I have to say we, because I can't say you, it's we. As parents want that way.
Amen.
Joe J,
Amen.
me,
Amen.
and Lady Amelia is already a parent. Some parents, come on, they do push it.
They do push their own issues. They were children once, and because of maybe their upbringing and things they've experienced, everything that you experience makes you who you are. So maybe the experiences that they have been through, they were not taught how to love. It took some people, I know some people, it take them a while to even learn how to hug their child.
Especially the African, some of the African parents.
I'm telling you, especially the men. They have to learn how to hug, and even though, they love their kids, but even just to say, I love you can be something that you have to teach them how to say it, and say it with I love you. What are you talking about? No, how to just probably say, I love you, and, sit with that child and talk to them, even to say something good, because to them, they think that if they're saying something good to their child, you're going to make their head swell, and then they'll stop doing good, because you've kind of told them, you've done so well, I'm so proud of you. Then they think that child will relax. So what they think is to keep them on their game. I'm never going to tell them they've done good, because if I do, then they will stop being good. So they kind of hold it back in their own way. They're proud, they're happy. When they come with maybe a B, they'll go, you could have got an A. Instead of saying, wow, well done, you got a B, they'll be like, what about the A? And I'm just like, you've just motivated that child. All the hard work and effort to get the B, at least say, you've got a B, well done. Now let's go for the A. It's, you could have got the A. So you mean to tell me you got 99.9%. What about the other 0.1%? But to them, their upbringing, that's how they were taught to motivate the children. So it's the understanding and their experience is making them behave like that. Maybe they also may have psychological problems. That's why they're abusing the child.
But on this show, we started this show 2 weeks ago about what are the issues facing the young people and why they're joining gangs. We talked about it. Then we always bring in the parents. We have to. And we had a caller on Monday, our brother, when he says that, come on, African parents, even Asian parents, that you need to go with the times. We can't keep on bringing the culture, saying that this is how we're brought up in Ghana or Africa or whatever, or India, and then expect the child to understand that you brought them here. So I think it's a matter of merging the two together. And still, I'm very proud of my culture, but I'm also very immersed with this Western culture.
You see, I believe that there are some circumstances where it will be slightly difficult for a parent to teach their child a different culture. For example, if the family are still learning the British culture, they can't expect their child immediately to adopt this culture straight away. But I'm a strong advocate for the truth, and I think parents would have a place to say, look, my son, my daughter, you're different. I've raised you different. I've raised you according to how I was raised. So if you go out there in school and people don't understand you or they don't get you, it's not because you're any less than them, but it's because I've raised you the African way. And it's
Climax,
Africans are better than British or British are better